In this lesson we're going to look at adjustment layers and how they work in Photoshop. Now the adjustments palette is on the right hand side of the screen. If you can't see it, just go into your window menu and choose adjustments. The adjustments palette has been there I think since about CS3. Prior to that we had to do image menu and then go to adjustments and choose them that way. That wasn't the best way of doing it because when we applied an adjustment it didn't actually create an adjustment layer, it did it directly to the layer, so we couldn't go back and tweak it afterwards, which is something we're going to come to a bit later on. Now every colour in this image you can see in front of us has its own colour rating, which I can show you by just taking the dropper over each bit, and if you look down here, CBAA39, wherever I click that is going to change. That's the colour rating of the image. Now there's some of the adjustment layers will just directly affect this. They'll effectively tell everything to boost itself by 1 or 2 or by however much we tell it to boost by. But every area of that image is slightly different because it's a photograph, which makes it a raster based format, which means it's made by pixels. So I'm going to start. I want to take the yellow out. I don't like the yellow. I'm not going to try and get rid of it. I'm just going to change it into something else. We'll keep it simple to start with. So I'm going to use an adjustment called hue and saturation. And what this allows me to do by changing the hue, I just drag that down, you can see that the colours within the image are changing quite quickly. Okay, if I take it back up, we can go back to reds, back to the yellow, I'll go towards the blues and that should make it go green. There we go, and I can go all the way through and eventually it should become blue itself. I don't want it blue, I certainly don't want it purple, I'm going to go for a nice striking green. But at the moment that green is too rich. And the next option in this adjustment palette is saturation. If I just drag that saturation down, I take it all the way, it'll make it black and white. If I put it all the way up, it'll make it so extreme it'll give you a headache. So I do want to tone it down, but I don't want to go too far. I'm going to go to about that. And the lightness at the bottom, what that's going to do, if I take it up, it's going to add white to the image, so the black areas are going to become grey. If I take it down, it will add black to the image, so the black areas will become blacker. And that should take away some of the pixelation. Now if I turn that adjustment layer off, we can see where we started. You can see there's quite a lot of light pollution around these areas of the image. There's quite a lot of fuzz around these areas. If I turn it back on, you can see we've kind of corrected that. Now I wanted to get the blacks blacker and I wanted to make the yellow turn into a green colour. What I actually want is for that to be more vibrant. I want the colours to be richer. So for that I'm going to apply an adjustment called vibrance. And all I'm going to do there, if I take the vibrance down, you should see the colours becoming less and less to pretty much black and white. But I'm going to ramp the vibrance up. I don't want it all the way up, just quite a bit of the way up. And again with the saturation, I'm just going to touch that up just a little bit. So I could have done that previously in the hue and saturation effect in adjustment layer, but sometimes it's better to use more than one adjustment layer. If I turn off the vibrance adjustment, you can see what difference it's making. It's making all the colours richer. But turn off the hue and saturation adjustment, it will actually increase all the colours. It'll increase all the colours of the buildings themselves. So I'm going to keep them both on. Now bearing in mind that if I change the order of those layers, it will actually change what's happening in the picture. I don't know how much YouTube's going to compress that, whether or not you'll see it. But what you should see is this pixelation around here that will appear when I put vibrance on first before hue and saturation. So there's that image done. It's tweaked. It's exactly where I want it to be. Let's have a look at this image. Now, I found this image on Google Images. It's some guy in some snow. I didn't search guy in snow. I searched overexposed for the purpose of what I wanted to show you. Now this adjustment will work with colour correction just as well as it will with still photography. It's an adjustment layer called levels. And the way this works, it understands that we have shadows in an image, we have midtones and we have highlights, and it will produce us a graph showing us what we've got. So at the moment we haven't really got many shadows, we've got quite a lot of midtones and then a peak in the highlights, which is why it's so overexposed. So to sort out the colours, all I'm going to do is I'm going to push the midtones towards the highlights, and that's going to bring the colour balance back. It's going to give us those trees back and make those bushes bushier. If I go too far and make his face too red, now it looks like a cold day, so his face probably was red whilst he's taking his MySpace photo. We don't want to make it too red. I'll just turn off that adjustment layer. You can see exactly what I've done. Yeah, here we are. Brought the colours back into the picture. Now that's a very simple adjustment. I can also tweak how much white input and how much black input there is in the picture. But if anything, that's just going to overexpose it again, or it's going to underexpose it. and just make the overall image too dark. So I've brought the colours back to where they should be in the picture. I can add other things, like I could then use, let's say, a threshold effect, which will make everything extreme black and white, and I can tweak how much of the image I want to be black and how much of it I want to be white. I can also then go back into my levels adjustment, and I can start tweaking it, which will in turn affect the threshold adjustment. So you can add layers of adjustments on top of each other and get different effects. Final thing I'm going to do with this image, I'm just going to tweak the threshold back to try and give him a bit more of a moustache. There you go, a bit more shadow. And the final thing I'm going to do is show you a nifty little trick. I'm going to select the layer that the guy's on, select colour range, I'm going to click on the white, I'm going to have the fuzziness all the way up, purely because the image is black and white, so it's as high contrast as we're going to get. When I hit OK, all the white in the image is going to be selected. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to choose a colour, something that's going to stand out, like red, and I'm going to go into my edit menu, choose fill, and choose foreground colour. And it'll fill it black, and I'm going to get rid of my selection, select menu, deselect, and I'm going to take my layer 2, and I'm going to put it above the threshold, and we get quite an interesting image. I can turn that off, I can turn the threshold off, I can turn that back on after threshold. That doesn't look too good, let's not do that. So threshold first, then the red. We've got quite an effective image if that's what we want to create. And the point being that without the levels, we wouldn't get the same image at all. It's just not going to work the same. So that's a few more tricks in your toolbox. Final one I'm going to show you. Do you remember the speedboat we were creating a few sessions ago, and we changed the richness of the water? We made it a lot more purple, a lot darker. Well, I went to sleep last night and decided actually I would quite like the speedboat to be black and white. I didn't, I'm just going to tell you that for the purpose of this tutorial. So we know to create black and white we need to desaturate an image, we need to take all the saturation out of it. So again, that's a hue and saturation effect, and I'm going to drag the saturation down. Notice that I've made sure that the hue and saturation effect adjustment layer comes above the copy of the boat that I made, because I put the boat on its own layer. Now, notice when I've taken that saturation down, it's taken all of the colour out of the image, apart from in the text. The ocean has lost its purpleness. And that's because adjustment layers will apply to every layer underneath itself is, unless you click this button here. Now, this button here will mean that this adjustment affects all layers below. Click to layer. Now, I will call that throughout my time using Photoshop the doorbell. Look for the button that looks like a doorbell, and when you click it, the hue and saturation adjustment layer here is going to indent to the right, and it will only apply directly to the layer beneath it. So you can end up with a black and white speedboat against a purple ocean. And that is all of the adjustment layers I'm going to show you. The rest of it is up to you. The main bit of advice I'd give you, if you don't know what the adjustment layer is going to do, drag the slider all the way to the right and see what happens. Drag it all the way to the left and see what happens, and then find the medium that you're looking for in between. Good luck.